Welcome to this week's Blue Mondays. Blue Mondays is where we take a look at national, state, and local news through a progressive perspective. On this week's show, we have an in-depth interview in a News from the Underground segment with Dr. Barbara Connor. Barbara Connor has invited in Mr. Jonathan Carmouche of the Lafayette Housing Authority. He's the deputy director there, and he's going to tell us exactly what the Housing Authority does and explain to us a lot of the different programs that we have to offer right here in Lafayette. It's an incredible organization that are really encompasses a lot of very dedicated individuals, and I think that we should lend them some of our support. But first, as always, this week in the news. President Clinton on Fox. That's right, President Clinton appeared on Fox, which immediately you can think, what? Why? But shortly after the interview starts, interviewer Chris Wallace invokes the mock-you-drama that appeared on ABC called The Path to 9/11. He asked the former president, why didn't you do more to stop bin Laden? And the fireworks started. Most perplexing is how Fox advertised this interview, distorting the president's views, and in fact, saying that he went crazy, when in all actuality, the man was just defending himself, something that the Democrats greatly appreciate, I'm sure. Here is Chris Wallace advertising his interview on the Saturday prior to it appearing on Sunday. Take a look and see for yourself.
Chris joins me now here on set to talk about this. Wow, I have heard from people who were there in the room that this is quite the interview.
I've been in the business a long time, and I've never seen anything quite like this, certainly not involving a president or former president. Email, people want to know, why didn't you do more to bring bin Laden to justice? And I've got to say, Brian, and you know, you figured he would be prepared to deal with that. He went off. He started talking. He wanted to go back to Somalia in '93 and the USS Cole. He says that this is all basically an effort by right-wing critics to diminish his administration, and that George W. Bush isn't held to the same account.
So, now that you saw that part, now let's take a look at the actual interview. Here are some clips from that interview.
Why didn't you do more to put bin Laden and al-Qaeda out of business when you were president?
I'm being asked this on the Fox network. ABC just had a right-wing conservative running their little pathway to 9/11, falsely claiming it was based on the 9/11 Commission report, with three things asserted against me directly contradicted by the 9/11 Commission report. And I think it's very interesting that all the conservative Republicans who now say I didn't do enough claimed that I was too obsessed with bin Laden. All of President Bush's neocons thought I was too obsessed with bin Laden. They had no meetings on bin Laden for 9 months after I left office. All the right-wingers who now say I didn't do enough said I did too much. Same people. They were all trying to get me to withdraw from Somalia in 1993, the next day after we were involved in Black Hawk Down, and I refused to do it and stayed 6 months and had an orderly transfer to the United Nations. Let's look at what Richard Clarke said. Do you think Richard Clarke has a vigorous attitude about bin Laden?
Yes, I do.
You do, don't you?
He has a variety of opinions and loyalties,
right.
but yes.
No, we took vigorous action after the African embassies. We probably nearly got bin Laden.
Well,
I authorized. No, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You've launched a few cruise missiles.
No. I authorized the CIA to get groups together to try to kill him. The CIA was run by George Tenet that President Bush gave the Medal of Freedom to. He said he did a good job setting up all these counterterrorism things. The country never had a comprehensive anti-terror operation until I came there. Now, if you want to criticize me for one thing, you can criticize me for this. After the Cole, I had battle plans drawn to go into Afghanistan, overthrow the Taliban, and launch a full-scale attack search for bin Laden. But we needed basing rights in Uzbekistan, which we got after 9/11. The CIA and the FBI refused to certify that bin Laden was responsible while I was there. They refused to certify.
You think you did enough, sir?
No, because I didn't get him.
Right.
But at least I tried. That's the difference in me and some, including all the right-wingers that are attacking me now. They ridicule me for trying. They had 8 months to try. They did not try. I tried. So I tried and failed. When I failed, I left a comprehensive anti-terror strategy and the best guy in the country, Dick Clark, who got demoted.
So I ask you, what did the president say that was factually incorrect? How did he actually lose his mind? How did he actually go crazy? It's unbelievable to me that they start to attack his character in the typical Republican style. When the Republicans can't address the facts, they attack the person. We've seen it time and time again. It's unbelievable that they think that this ploy is going to keep happening. Instead, this interview really had to fire up a lot of the progressives, I being one of them. I think the president did a great job. Why don't they ask this administration why they haven't caught bin Laden? After all, how many years later is it now? 5 years later, and we still have yet to do anything about bin Laden. It's unbelievable to me that we're still dealing with these types of issues. Also, I wanted to point out that for the first 8 months of the Bush administration, it's clearly been shown through the 9/11 report that the Bush administration did nothing. In fact, they actually demoted the counterterrorism czar, Richard Clarke. Not necessarily him, but the whole entire office. They demoted it down to a lower level so that the president was no longer receiving this information directly. It's unbelievable to me. I suppose that at this stage of the game, we probably shouldn't be surprised that Fox was trying to pull something like this. But it's unbelievable to me that we still are dealing with it. If anything, like I said, this has emboldened the progressives. So way to go, President Clinton. No oversight from this Congress. Well, here we go again. The Republican leadership of this Congress refuses to hold this administration accountable for what it's doing. All of these claims that we've had from this administration have not proven to be factual, especially in the situation of Iraq. This past week, Major General John Batiste testified before Congress, though not in an official congressional hearing. No, Republicans wouldn't allow that. So the Democrats had to hold their own investigative hearing, and in fact, they couldn't even call it a hearing because the Republicans wouldn't allow them to do so. However, here are some of General Batiste's comments.
The detailed, deliberate planning to finish the job in Iraq was not considered, as Secretary Rumsfeld forbade military planners from developing plans for securing a post-war Iraq. At one point, he threatened to fire the next person who talked about the need for a post-war plan. I believe that Secretary Rumsfeld and others in the administration did not tell the American people the truth for fear of losing support for the war in Iraq. And the result is 1% of the population shouldering the burdens, continued hemorrhaging of our national treasure in terms of blood and dollars, an Army and Marine Corps that will require tens of billions of dollars to reset after we withdraw from the country, the majority of our National Guard brigades no longer combat ready, a Veterans Administration which is underfunded by over $3 billion, and America arguably less safe now than it was on September 11, 2001. First, the American people need to take charge through their elected officials. Secretary Rumsfeld and the administration are fighting a war in secret that threatens our democratic values. This needs to stop right now, today. Second, we must replace Secretary Rumsfeld and his entire inner circle. We deserve leaders whose judgment and instinct we can all trust. We must rethink our Iraqi strategy. More of the same is not a strategy, nor is it working. Finally, we need to get serious about mending our relationships with allies and getting closer to our friends and enemies. America cannot go this alone. All of this is possible, but we need leadership and responsible congressional oversight to pull us off. I challenge the American people to get informed and speak out. Remember that Congress represents and works for the people. Congressional oversight committees have been strangely silent for too long, and our elected officials must step up to their responsibilities or be replaced. This is not about partisan politics, but rather what is good for our country. Our November elections are crucial. Every American needs to understand the issues and cast his or her vote. I believe that one needs to vote for the candidate who understands the issues and who has the moral courage to do the harder right rather than the easier wrong.
So that was Major General John Batiste. It's quite newsworthy when the men and women in uniform are standing up against the Secretary of Defense and against this administration and the political leaders against what they're doing. You know, this administration is constantly trumpeting the sounds that they're doing exactly what the men and women on the ground are asking them to do. However, we're finding out that that's not the case. It's too bad, though, that these brave men and women are forced to retire before their voices can actually be heard. You know, to have these men and women standing up before Congress and basically begging for new leadership in the Congress, urging the American people to vote out the current administration because they're not doing anything, you know, that's pretty strong. That's pretty strong. But where was this in the news? Nowhere. Well, here at Blue Mondays, we're going to try and bring you the news that you're not hearing in mainstream media. So hopefully you'll keep tuning in so that you can hear it right for yourself. Republicans are definitely running scared. No longer can this administration claim that they're doing, like I said, exactly what their men and women are asking for on the ground. It's not. They're not. This administration and the rubber stamp Republican Congress are not supporting the troops. That's fair and clear to us right now. Mind you, this is all happening the same week that the national security estimate was leaked, showing that all of the U.S. intelligence agencies are actually saying loud and clear that this administration's stance on Iraq is actually making us less safe. It's making the entire world less safe. It's the metaphorical going and hitting a hornet's nest with a stick. That's exactly what we've done. Meanwhile, the perpetrators of 9/11 are still not captured or killed. Osama bin Forgotten is still on the loose. Where is Congressman Boustany on all of this, you may ask? Well, he's following in lockstep with all of the other Republicans. He will not even admit that there are any problems over in Iraq. He thinks everything is going just perfectly. It's unbelievable that we're hemorrhaging all of this money over in Iraq when now we can't afford to protect ourselves here at home. Many of the items that are listed in the 9/11 report have not been implemented yet. Our ports are still not being screened. Our borders are still not secure. And we're hemorrhaging money over in Iraq, fighting a war that is unbelievably crazy. 51 men and women, after braving through combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, have now returned home and declared their candidacy for Congress. Guess what? They're all Democrats. Coincidence? I really don't think so. They're called the Fighting Dems, and we're going to see a lot of headlines from these 51 men and women. They're quite brave. Again, more information of this is on our show notes on our website. Jack Cafferty on CNN. Boy, you know what? Keith's got some competition out there. Jack Cafferty's been doing an incredible job. He stands up against the media love fest for the so-called congressional compromise to allow torture. Here is a clip from Jack Cafferty's report on CNN. Take a look.
The cause of some of the resurgence, if you will, of the Taliban has to be traced to the decision by the United States to put 150,000 troops into an invasion in Iraq. What do you think would be the problem with the Taliban if we left all those soldiers in Afghanistan? Do you think there would have been a 50% increase in the heroin poppy or the opium poppy production? Do you think the women would be running around that country now? Reportedly, some of them are having to wear burqas again as the Taliban begins to reassert its influence. I don't think so. And I think both of these guys are probably reluctant to say, you know, President Bush, you're part of the problem. You decided to invade Iraq. You had the Taliban on the run. You had killed a lot of the people in Al-Qaeda. You had, what's his name, Osama bin Laden cornered in Tora Bora. You had these guys in your gun sights when all of a sudden Afghanistan became number 2 on your priority list because you wanted to run off and wage war against Saddam Hussein. But nobody's going to say that, except maybe me.
Jack Cafferty.
It seems quite clear that the Republicans are scared to death that they're going to lose the House and the Senate, thus meet their get-out-of-jail-free card that Jack Cafferty talked about here. You know, this legislation also has the bill in there that says that if anyone has tortured or ordered torture, they can't be prosecuted underneath this bill. It's unbelievable to me that the Republicans are going this far, but yet they're saying that torture never happened. Well, if torture never happened, then why do we have to have this part of this bill put in there that basically gives carte blanche to any of these individuals that this administration is forced to torture these detainees? Cafferty also delivers a strong hit against against Bush's interview. Bush claims that when history records our issues over in Iraq, that it will be nothing more than a comma. Unbelievable. Take a look. Here's the clip of Bush and Cafferty's reaction.
Thank you, Wolf. Sometimes politicians say really dumb things. Check this out.
I like to tell people when the final history is written on Iraq, it'll look like just a comma. Because my point is there's a strong will for democracy.
A comma in the history books. That was in an interview with Wolf Blitzer. That particular clip ran yesterday in his Sunday program. Well, Mr. President, here's what that comma looks like so far. 2,700 American soldiers dead. 20,000 Americans seriously wounded, arms and legs blown off, things like that. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqis dead, including women and children, the wholesale slaughter of innocent civilians. Many of these people tortured before they're murdered just because they happen to get caught in the waves of secular rage that are sweeping through that country. It's violence unlike anything I can remember, and the United States and the Iraqi government are powerless to control it. An increase in the terrorist threat to the United States as a result of President Bush's decision to invade Iraq. That's according to the latest national intelligence estimate. We'll have more on that later in the third hour of the Situation Room. And appropriations from the U.S. Treasury to pay for all this comma, totaling $500 billion and counting.
Folks, we can't make this stuff up. We cannot make this stuff up. Again, if you'd like to see these clips in their entirety, log on to our website and click on to Blue Mondays. There you'll be able to find all of the links to these complete and total videos so that you can see for yourself. George Macaca Allen is showing his stripes yet again. George Allen, the senator from Virginia, who is desperately fighting to keep his seat in the Senate, is being exposed further. That's right. Here is a clip about a month ago of George Allen using the racial slur that has gotten so much press. Unbelievably, it's gotten so much press. But here you go. Here's a reminder.
This fellow here over here with the yellow shirt, Macaca, or whatever his name is, he's with my opponent. And let's give a welcome to Macaca here. Welcome to America and the real world of Virginia.
And here's the young man, S.R. Siddharth. He's a resident of Virginia, an American citizen, straight-A student at Fairfax High School, and now goes to the University of Virginia. Critics say that macaca is a racist slur and that you used it because he was dark-skinned.
Less than a month after this incident, now we're hearing that there might be a pattern involved here. That's right. Allegedly, Allen placed a severed head of a deer into the mailbox of an African-American family. Unbelievable. Up next week, we are going to bring you a full recap of the September 30th elections. You know, this is already being aired on the Monday after those elections. However, we're taping this a few days early. So it's going to be really important. So next week, you'll be able to tune in. You'll get a full update as to how the races played out. Again, we had elections all over the area for municipal elections in the smaller cities, as well as school board races in all of the surrounding areas. There's also some interesting races that are being run up in Opelousas as well. So you'll want to definitely tune in next week so that we'll be able to give you the full recap of how things turned out at the elections, and we'll go in and take an analysis of hopefully predict how things are going to work out on November for those elections. And that, guess what, guys, is your Democratic news for October 2nd, 2006. We'd like to thank you for stopping by Blue Mondays. Blue Mondays, again, is on every single Monday night right here on AOC Channel 5. If you're watching us on the internet via YouTube, we are now live on the internet at youtube.com/AOC Blue Mondays. There you'll be able to see our past shows as well as catch up on the shows that we are airing currently. You can also check us out at LafayetteDemocrats.org, or you can call us on our Democratic hotline. You know what? Call us up. Tell us how you think we're doing. Our telephone number is 769-7347. There you can get in touch with us at any time. And also, we'd like to remind you that Democracy Now! Plays on AOC Channel 16 at 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. every single day. And with that, we'll be right back.